Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening, depending obviously when you are picking up this video. Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host Owen, channel that brings you your team every single day, guys. Apologies for late to the video today. Busy work night last night, didn't get back in until really late. Absolutely knackered when I got in, so recording on the go this morning. Well, it's official. Phillipe Clement has been unveiled as Rangers' new manager. James Bisgrove unveiled him yesterday in the Blue Room, the historic Blue Room in the Build to Truth main stand at Ibrox. It was certainly becoming a bit of a common occurrence, certainly something we hope doesn't happen now for a number of years. I certainly don't want to see any more managers been unveiled for at least another 2 to 3 years. And the only reason I want to see a new manager being unveiled is because Phillipe Clement has won treble after treble after treble and has been taken by one of the top English clubs. Or, you know what, I had preferred to stay if that's the case, but you never know. You never know. Money does talk. Well, some interesting things to come out of the press conference yesterday. I think one of the biggest things that really impressed me about Phillipe Clement was his attitude, the fact that he talks exceptionally positively about the fact that he is a winner, the fact that he loves pressure, the fact that he, wants success. And he talked very realistically as well. That's another thing I think was kind of key for me. He was asked obviously about Celtic's 7-point lead at the top of the table. And, he talked about the fact that it is a marathon and that we can focus on the person in front of us and sprint, but then we'll have no legs for the rest of the season, which I think is very telling. And I think the whole point now is that we need to worry about ourselves. Again, something that he said. It's realistically now about Rangers going on, focusing on what we do over the next 5 to 10 games to 15 games and then on into next year. It's about us really, looking at this for a long term and thinking this is all about getting this right. And I think listening to what Phillipe Clement had to say, he talked, about playing football that was fluid. He talked about playing football with high tempo. He talked about playing attacking football, but didn't want to give too much away. As he joked, he said, my friends and competitors will be watching this and I don't want to give them much more material. He recognised that there are things wrong at the club and that need to be changed. He talked about how the players were making mistakes and they needed to undo those mistakes, which was very, very interesting as well. One of the other things as well, he said obviously that he hadn't met the full squad yet. That would obviously come Thursday once everyone has returned from international duty, which obviously makes it very difficult for Phillipe to prepare the team for Saturday's game against Hibernian, because when you're only getting these players back at a later date, it becomes tricky, doesn't it, to kind of meld them all together, get them to play the style that you want. And I think, the Hibernian game, we're going to see some elements of that, but we're not going to see the full Phillipe Clement experience, I think, for a good, say, 2 to 3 more weeks yet, as he obviously seeks to put his ideas into practice. Now, he talked also, which was very encouraging, about young players. Now, one thing that I think we can all kind of criticise Rangers managers for in recent times has been the lack of giving youth a chance. I think Stephen Davis did very well in terms of giving, McCausland and Lovelace an opportunity to play. And obviously Zach is out injured at the moment. We hope that Zach will make a speedy recovery. But look, I think what was encouraging was the fact that Phillipe's talked about the fact how he'd included the youth team players. And he said that, including youth team players and using young players and developing young players was something that he was very passionate about. And you've only got to look back across his track record at all the clubs he's been at, whether it be Genk or Bruges or even Monaco, where he's developed young players, he's brought young players on, and he's then obviously turned those young players into multi-million-pound talents. And I think for Rangers, we have some talents that we all hope are going to go on to be very successful. Ross McCausland, Zach Lovelace, Alex Lowry, Cole McKinnon, Leon King, Adam Devine, Robbie McCrory, there's Shaka Thompson. There's a massive list of young lads that could impress for this team. And I'm very optimistic that under this new manager, they will be given the opportunity to impress, the opportunity to actually play and the opportunity to actually do something for this club. This is something that hopefully we'll start to see on Saturday. And obviously, one of the biggest names I think we all want to see, given the promise that he's already showed and the fact that he is an exceptional talent, that is Bailey Rice. Bailey's phenomenal. He really is phenomenal. Bailey, has the potential, I think, to be an absolute superstar. I think, we've obviously developed talents in the past, the Nathan Pattersons, Billy Gilmores, but I think that, looking at Bailey, he has the potential to surpass both of those. So, look, at the end of the day, I hope Bailey Rice is one of the people that Phillipe has been looking at and has been impressed with. And certainly hope that Phillipe gives Bailey his head and gives Bailey an opportunity. I'd like to actually see Bailey and Nicholas Raskin play together in a 4-2-3-1 system. I think they could have a great relationship and do really well for the club. They look dynamic, they look quick. And the other thing about Raskin and Rice is that they have good first touch. They control the ball well. They're not a second touch as a tackle like Lundstrom. Those industrial footballers that we don't need anymore. We need these young quality players, and certainly hearing Phillipe talk about the young players was very refreshing indeed. There was questions obviously about the sporting director was made to James Bisgrove. And James Bisgrove spoke about the fact that it is very much on the agenda. He spoke about how the football management side of the business is made up in terms of the head of scouting John Park, head of football operations Craig Robertson. He talked about the director of medical and performance, which is Dr. Mark Waller. He talked about the fact that there's a lot of people in place, the board and himself as well. But he said that it was very much on the agenda. That he was pressed on a timescale for a sporting director, and he said it could be weeks, could be months, but that Phillipe Clement would be involved in the process, which certainly gives an interesting thought to this whole thing. Is that who is the best person to come in and work with Phillipe Clement? It's got to be someone that Phillipe has an understanding with, and someone I think that will develop Rangers and help Rangers to move on in terms of footballing strategy. I think, there's a lot of debate over this sporting director role, the technical director role, isn't there? And look, this is the way I look at it, is that in this modern game, and I think we saw with Michael Beale, the perils of not having a sporting director. You need someone above the manager, someone who is there to help run that side of things, the contracts, the negotiations, the transfers. And I think we've kind of all been stung by the ineptitude of Ross Wilson, but I think you can look on it and say, well, look, it was left to Michael Beale in the last window, and he was even more inept than Ross Wilson. A sporting director is kind of someone who I think who sits there and along with the manager and others, will kind of go through it and say, right, no, these players are not going to work. Do we really need another one of these? Do we really need? I mean, you've only got to look at the number of strikers we bought, and yes, none of them have particularly worked out, but is it a point where someone should have said to Michael Beale, no, we don't need any more strikers. What we need is a centre-back, a left-back, a right-back, which I think is definitely something that we need to consider. So for me, a sporting director is absolutely needed. And I think the sooner one is appointed, the better for the club. I think we need to get this right. We need to put in place a real structure that is going to work for this club. I think under Phillipe Clement, we have an exceptional manager, an exceptional talent who can really take this club forward, but we need to give him the best possible opportunities to succeed. That was also spoke of in terms of the January transfer budget, and there would be obviously finance there, in line with what we have, which was reassuring to hear. He was also questioned obviously about his backroom staff. He spoke very favourably about Stephen Davis, and I think there's a good opportunity that Stephen will be part of that structure, even though I think Stephen does want to continue playing. Phillipe Clement did speak very highly of Stephen Davis. I'm trying to think positively at this moment in time that under Phillipe Clement, this club can move forward. He seems to have a winner's ethos. I think what James Bisgrove said was very, very poignant. He said that this is a winner, a guy who's won trophies, a guy who knows how to win. And that's something that I think we hadn't had previously, especially under Michael Beale, who didn't have the experience that Phillipe Clement certainly brings with him from his previous jobs with Genk and Bruges. You look also at this, he was asked obviously about the James Tavernier captaincy situation. And he said that would not change, which obviously will annoy some fans, irritates me slightly. But look, I think, there are bigger issues out there at the moment than James Tavernier's inability to defend and inability to lead a team. I think, he has to address those first. I think part of the issue with James Tavernier is there is a real debate over what is best with him. Yes, he is. I mean, I think it's an undisputable fact that James Tavernier is way past his best. I think it is an undisputable fact that James Tavernier is an absolutely awful defender. He is good going forward. Is there some sort of merit to moving him forward into a more attacking role? I think part of the issue is that perhaps Dujon Sterling hasn't done what we wanted him to do in terms of really pushing Tav. I think if we had signed a right back with some experience who was younger than James Tavernier and had a bit of talent and ability and had shown that, I think Tav would be nowhere near the first team, if I'm being absolutely honest with you. So, these are all questions that Phillipe Clement will have to address over time, which I'm sure he will. He seems like a manager who will take those decisions. I think, having players back for Saturday will be very, very good for the team and good for Phillipe. It was really reassuring yesterday to see Todd Cantwell and Danilo back on the training park. Cantwell, obviously, after his comments about Chris Sutton, which I thought personally were hilarious and spot on, and Danilo wearing the face mask, looking good. What was it? Nicholas Raskin called him Leonardo or something like that. But it'd be good if Danilo is back, fit and able to play on Saturday. Certainly, given the fact that Cyril Dessers is absolute garbage. Phillipe Clement was asked about Dessers, actually, and he did say that just because he's Belgian, he would not receive any favourable treatment, which I thought was a weird question to be asked anyway. Well, guys, thank you for listening and watching. We'll obviously look at this in a bit more depth throughout the day, and we've got the podcast tonight, which is a Q&A. So, guys, get your Q&A questions in on the community tab. And obviously, we'll talk a bit more depth about Phillipe Clement and what he had to say. Thanks for watching, guys. And as always, if you've enjoyed the content and I've earned your sub, please hit that sub, ring that notification bell. And on your way out, there's two things I always need you to do for me. Number one, smash the like. And number two, remember, we are the people.
Who's a good Muslim?